शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये. Om. Dear friends, welcome to the Geeta. We are seeing the 33rd sloka of the third chapter. The third chapter, as we have seen, is the Karma Yoga. Krishna has described what is Karma Yoga, and Krishna has spoken at two levels. One, at the level of an ordinary man who has to practice Karma Yoga, and the other, the level of a Jnani. A Jnani also can do Karma. It is not as though a Jnani is prohibited from doing Karma. If the Jnani, for example, he gave the examples of King Janaka and others, Janakadaya. And these people, they are all wise people. They are all realized people. They also know the nature of Brahman. They also know the reality of Brahman. And they are also doing their royal duties, etc. And the way, their attitude to work is totally different. A Karma Yogi attitude is, he knows that he is the Karta and he is not the Bhokta. He doesn't want the fruit of the Karma. Whereas a Jnani, he also knows that he is not the Karta. Gunakarma vibhagayoh guna guneshu vartante. He is aware of that, of the fact that it is the three gunas which are acting, and he is not the actor. He is just playing the role, just like an actor plays the role. He is playing that role. That is all. So he told all that. And Krishna also said, Ye me matamidam punya nityam anutishtanti manavaha. Those who follow this particular practice, they will be happy. They will realize the truth. So he said that. But he gave a warning. In the 33rd sloka, he said, he is not a warning exactly, but he is telling about the general human nature. What is the general human nature? That is, we have got, over a period of time, all our mind is filled with so many predispositions, so many experiences. After all, mind is basically a bundle of so many experiences. And all these experiences, they guide our future actions. As I said earlier also, mind is actually a bundle of so many impressions and so many interactions with so many people, so many situations, handling so many situations. And all these situations, they create some sort of impressions in the mind. And these impressions are also called the vasana. They are also called the samskaras. And these are like predispositions. They predispose a person to act in a particular way. So Krishna is saying, Sadrusham cheshtate swasya prakrute jnanavanapi. Prakruter jnanavanapi. So here the meaning of Prakriti as given by the commentators is that Prakriti is not referring to the nature as such. Prakriti is referring to Purvakruta dharma dharmadi samskara. As I was saying, all these the predispositions which have accumulated over a period of time due to our own activities, due to our own impressions. And these are the things which are determining our future course of action. So he says, Prakritim yanti bhutani. So all the beings, they are guided by that. They are influenced by that. Nigraha kim karishyati. That is, what is the use of restraint? It is not as though Krishna is throwing up his hands and saying that it is of no use, all the Shastra is of no use, etc. Krishna is only saying the magnitude of these predispositions, or rather the great role which these predispositions play, this Prakriti or predispositions they play in guiding the course of a man. So that is what he has been saying. So even for a Jnani, there is a need for to be always alert. And of course, even a Jnani, he also has to be engaged in his day-to-day activities. Jnani does not mean that he stops eating or drinking. He will be still going about his bodily emotions. So all these things, when he is doing, he should be aware of these things. He should be aware of that Prakriti. He should be aware of any predispositions rising again. He should be constantly putting them down. So that is what is the role of a Jnani also. So Prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. Nigraha means by forcibly. Suppose you say, yes, I am forcibly restraining this, etc. We are only deceiving ourselves. So this nigraha should not be by force. Nigraha should be by intelligent understanding of the situation. So that is what we see in this 33rd sloka. And in this 33rd sloka, one may get an impression. Okay, Krishna is saying, okay, even wise people, Prakriter Jnanavanapi. Even a Jnanavan, even a wise person, he is guided by the predispositions. If that is so, if everything is so predetermined, what is the role of Shastra? What can I do? I can't do anything. Okay, I will go as per my predispositions. This is the normal nature of a human being. A human being, usually all of us, unless we are acquainted with or unless we are suddenly exposed, come in contact with Shastra, we normally go about, we just drift in our life. Most of the time, or rather most of the people, they drift in their life. Drift means, okay, whatever comes in the way, okay, you are going to do it. In the morning, we get up, read half a dozen newspapers, and see some TV channels, and suddenly your wife says, okay, in this place there is a nice, some new hotel has come up, or some new film has come. Okay, let us go. So that means you are drifted by something which is there. You are just impacted. You are impacted, and then getting drifted by that incident. So that is what happens. Again, some other impression. Again, the next day, the same thing happens. Again, the next day, the same thing happens. So like that, we may not, of course, we may be having some force or some sort of task, some sort of goals, depending on the job we are doing. Apart from that, we will not be having any of our personal goals. You may have some job goals. When you go to an office, you have got some, okay, job profile. And according to the job profile, you are performing your job and you are also achieving some things. But when you come home, then what is our goal? Then what is our, is there any parallel track to know what exactly are you doing as a human being? Are we trying to understand what is life? Are we trying to know what the great people have thought about life earlier? So that sort of agenda will not be there. Usually we get drifted. So that is what he said. Then what is the use of Shastra? A question may arise. So that is why the next question, next shloka comes. 34th shloka. He says, that is, in the indriyasya indriyasyarthe ragadvesha vyavasthitau tayorna vashamagachet tau hyasya paripanthinau. He says, indriyasya indriyasya arthe. That is, first of all, I will tell you the context. As I said, if a person is totally predetermined to do something, depending on the past predispositions, then what can he do? He is helpless. And Krishna cannot say, yes, totally helpless. Krishna is giving a solution. He is not helpless. He has to overcome these things. He has to overcome this raga and dvesha. He has to overcome his prakriti. Prakriti means all the predispositions. All these predispositions the person has to overcome. So he is saying how it has to be done. Indriyasya arthe. That is indriyasya. Indriya means a sense organ. For every sense organ, there is a corresponding sense object. We know that the five senses, there are five sense objects. We have discussed it several times. And the senses, they always seek the sense objects because the senses are also derived from those five bhuta, panchamahabhutas only. These panchamahabhutas are responsible for the development or evolution of the five senses in the body. The five senses in the body and the mind, how have they evolved? Philosophy, basically it is philosophy. How exactly the mind has evolved, how exactly the indriyas have evolved, they are corresponding to the panchamahabhutas. So indriyartha again are the same panchamahabhutas. So the sense organs, they are seeking fulfillment. They are seeking fulfillment with the sense objects. And again, when they are seeking fulfillment, there is something called raga, there is something called dvesha. Raga means, I like a particular thing, that is a like. Dvesha means, I dislike a particular thing. Raga, dvesha, vyavasthitau. Vyavasthitau means, naturally, depending on the predispositions in a person, they are established. Suppose I like a particular thing. That is my tendency. You may not like it. What I like, you may not like it. And I don't like some other thing. And somebody else may like it very much. So these likes and dislikes are established in all the sense objects. So for every indriya, there is a sense object in which you have got raga and dvesha. So then he says, these things, okay, they may be there, but you can't be guided by them. You have to overcome them. Tayor na vashamagachet. The second line says, Tayoho na vashamagachet. Tayoho means of what? Tayoho means of those two. Tayoho means of those two. Of which two? That is raga and dvesha. Do not come under the control of or under the sway of this raga and dvesha. That is likes and dislikes, love or hate. So these two things, you don't come under the influence of these two. So okay, Krishna is talking at a high level of a seeker who is trying to have realization. But we need not talk even at a high level, even at an ordinary level, if we see that a person can take a right decision on any situation, on anything. Suppose there is some situation or some sort of problem. In any problem, when can you take a right decision? We can take a right decision when the mind is very clean, when I have no prejudice, when I don't have my nephew whose interview is being held. Suppose I am sitting in an interview and my nephew has come for an interview. And naturally, I have some sort of prejudice, and prejudice in the sense a positive prejudice. So my decision will not be all that right. My decision will not be perfect. And something else in some other situation. Okay, suppose I dislike a particular thing and my decision will not be okay. Suppose I am sitting as a judge and I dislike a particular thing, and that particular thing has come to my jurisdiction, into my jurisdiction, and I have to take a decision. If I have to take a decision, what type of decision can I take if I am having some prejudice? So raga and dvesha, that is like and dislike, or love or hatred, these two things, even for a normal man, even for a normal situation, when I go to my office, when I look into a file, suppose I don't like it, then immediately there is a negative answer. So like that, raga and dvesha, they impact and then they influence a person to take a wrong decision, even in ordinary life. Then what to talk of spiritual life? And in the spiritual life, what is at stake? In the spiritual life, a person is supposed to read or rather study the Upanishads. And in the Upanishads, what do they say? In the Upanishads, they say certain things which appear totally unnatural, or rather totally unreal or unrealistic. Not unnatural, but unrealistic, let us say. Upanishads, suppose they say, Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. What is that you are that? You are thinking that you are an ordinary human being, a limited in body-mind complex, but you are not that limited body-mind complex. You are the supreme reality, and there is no difference between you and that supreme reality. You have to only realize it, it says. So for us, for most of us, it looks very, very unrealistic. So that is the reason why even in the Indian philosophies, there are several systems which do not accept it. We are very, very comfortable saying that yes, Lord is there and I am here, I am doing bhajana, I am always the servant of the Lord, etc., etc. That is again, we should not demean it or we should not dismiss it. But the highest philosophy in Vedanta is that it says Tattvamasi. So such things, they look unrealistic. And if you want to make a very, very honest investigation into the nature of these things, if you want to make a very clear inquiry, and how do you realize all these things? Suppose it says Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, etc. It says. And how are you going to realize it? Unless you make a thorough investigation, unless you make an impartial investigation. That is what is called Viveka. Viveka means proper discrimination. Discrimination in the sense, not in the sense we use it, okay, there is a racial discrimination, not that sort of discrimination. Discrimination means analysis. If we want to make a proper analysis of what is right and what is wrong, what is eternal and what is ephemeral. Ephemeral is impermanent. So if we want to make this analysis, our mind has to be very clean. And the mind will be clean only when the mind is not filled with raga and dvesha. It is not having any prejudice on anything, either positive prejudice or a negative prejudice. So that is the reason why Krishna says, Tayorna vashamagachet tauhyasya paripanthinau. These two things like raga, that is raga and dvesha, they are like paripanthi. Paripanthinau. Paripanthinau is dual number. That is, paripanthinau means they are like the two highway robbers. They are the twin robbers who will rob you of your goal. You are having a goal on the spiritual path. You are having a goal. You have to understand. You have to understand the great sentences which are there in the Upanishads. And now you are hijacked. You are hijacked by raga and dvesha. You are kidnapped or hijacked or abducted by raga and dvesha. So, tauhyasya paripanthinau, they make us take wrong decisions. So, all these statements of Upanishads, they look absurd to us. So, that is the reason why many people, they say it is absurd. Because a man who is totally indulging in sensual pleasures and who thinks that is something which is very, very great and that is very real, such a person can never come to this understanding. He can never come to this understanding. Suppose even theoretically also, he can never come to this understanding. He will dismiss it as the ranting of some old rishi or some such thing. So Krishna says, do not get under the control of this raga and dvesha. You try to come out of the control of this raga and dvesha. Only then you will be able to take the right decision. So in fact, there is a constant tussle between this nature, as we call it, swabhava, and Shastra. In the same human mind, there is always a constant tussle. In fact, one Upanishad, why one Upanishad in two Upanishads, the commentators they have written. We always talk about Deva Asura Sangrama, that is the fight between the Devas and Asuras. And what are Devas and what are Asuras? Deva does not mean some god who is wearing some nice crown, some golden crown, kiritam as we call it, and having very nice dress and having nice weapons. And the Rakshasa, a very, very crude person, etc. Not like that. Devaha means Shastrodbhasita Indriya Vrutaya. The commentators, they say, Deva does not mean somebody who is there in the sky and fighting somebody else. Devas means your own attitude, your own thought processes which are refined by the study of Shastra. Your own ideas, your own thoughts which are refined by the study of scriptures. They are called the Devas. And Asuraha tad viparitaha. Asura means tad viparitaha means something which is contrary to that. That is something unrefined ideas. Your Prakruti as we call it. Prakruti means your Swabhava. The Swabhava is okay. Swabhava drives you, okay, let us go to the pond, let us go here, let us do this sinful activity. So but Shastra prohibits a person from doing a sinful activity. So there is a constant tussle. So that is why the commentators have said, Anudinam Vartamanaha Adhyatmika Sangramaha. This sort of tussle which goes on is the perpetual battle which goes on in the mind, in the person. That is Adhyatmika. Adhyatmika means in the person. Anudinam Vartamanaha. It is going on every day. The fight between good and bad is going on every day in our minds. So that is Devasura Sangrama. So here he says, you are not supposed to come under the control of these two things, because these two, they are like the highway robbers. So here one more point we have to see. There are two words in Vedanta, in philosophy, not Vedanta only. Even in the Western philosophy, we come across two words. One is called determinism and the other is called free will. Determinism means everything is so predetermined. In India, in fact, we are all accused of talking about fatalism. Okay, what is there? It is all in my karma. People loosely say, okay, it is all in my karma. All this, your karma is this, your karma, you have to bear it. So we think that our Indian philosophy or Upanishads, they only talk about your karma. You are destined to be this and you cannot come out of this. If you are destined to be something and if you can't come out of it, then what is the use of all these Shastras? So what we have to see here in these 2-3 shlokas and also in many other places, there is a combination of what is called a determinism and free will in Indian philosophy. In the sense that a person's birth is determined. A person's birth and a person's nature, that is Swabhava as we call it, some predispositions, etc. They are there. With those predispositions, a person is born. To that extent it is there. But thereafter, Shastra trains him. Thereafter, he undergoes so much of modification. He can go to a teacher, he can study Shastras, and then he can totally dismiss, he can totally obliterate, he can totally nullify all the previous all these predispositions. He can totally nullify them. That is what is called Vasanakshaya. Vasanakshaya means all the predispositions are totally burnt away. So that is Vasanakshaya. So that is what we see here, we see there. So this Vasanakshaya is very, very important. So Shastra is very, very useful. It is not as though Shastra is totally ineffective or unnecessary or redundant. Shastra is not redundant. So there is a good combination of what we call it determinism and free will. So when somebody says, okay, all of you believe in this karma siddhanta, karma vadam, okay, this man is destined to be here. It is not right. Shastras are there to elevate a person from the normal swabhava to the state of realization. Then we come to the next shloka, 38th shloka. Then he says, he is further elaborating on the role of this kama and krodha. What exactly do this kama and krodha do? He says, dhumena vriyate vanhihi yatha darsho malena cha yatholbena vruto garbha Garbhastatha tenedamavrutam dhumena avriyate vanhihi yatha adarsho malena cha. He is giving 3 examples. That is, there is a fire burning bright in one place. is a fire. Fire, of course, fire burning bright. And usually, a fire, usually it also has smoke. Unless it is very, very pure fuel. If the fuel is impure, there is a lot of smoke also around. That is what we see. Suppose there is a forest fire. In the forest fire, there is not only fire, there is so much of smoke. And he is giving the example of a glass, a mirror rather, a reflecting mirror on which a lot of dust is there. And he is also giving the example of a fetus within that cover. There is a fetus which is covered by, there is something like a ulba, yata ulbena. The fetus is covered by a thick layer of skin. So he is giving these three examples. We will see what he is trying to say. We will see it tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat.